Today on Joy of the Hang, we're diving into something that doesn't always get talked about in leadership rooms: the soul. I'm joined by Emilee Tucker, who now travels the world guiding men and women to become their most authentic and aligned selves, personally and professionally. After years of corporate stagnation, a grueling breakup, and chasing traditional self development strategies, Emilee realized something powerful. The soul is the missing piece. Since then, she has dedicated her life to helping people reconnect with who they truly are at the soul and energetic level so they can become better humans and more conscious leaders. With over 18 years of corporate experience, advanced degrees in leadership and organizational effectiveness, and certifications spanning breathwork, human design, gene keys, EFT, Reiki 2, and NLP, Emilee blends strategy with energetics in a way that's both grounded and transformative. This conversation is deep, practical, and expansive, and I cannot wait for you to hear it. So let's dive in. Welcome, Emilee.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to learn more about you. We met probably, I don't know, maybe a year ago, maybe not even. And I was like, so interested in all that you do and realize we haven't really had a chance to catch up. So I'm excited.
This is exciting. Yeah, I want to say I came into your world and your circle probably late summer. I've been here about a year and a half in the Florida area and went to went to all the events that I could to really start to build my network. So I'm excited to be part of yours.
Wow, it's only been a year and a half. Where are you from originally?
Connecticut. I left the cold.
So we're both New England girls. I'm a Maine girl and you're a Connecticut girl. So yeah.
You a little more cold than I did though. Different.
True. Do you ever miss it? Well, you've only been here a year and a half, so.
I miss the seasons, I miss the mountains, and I miss some of the people.
Yeah.
Those are the things I miss.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The seasons, it's interesting here in Florida because you feel like you never know what time of year it is because it's always beautiful and sunny, which we're so blessed to have. But I do miss having the fall and the spring and a little bit of snow, not 3 months of it.
Oh, you did. You had a definitive line, will you, of now it's fall and now it's winter and you don't have that transition. It may be that you've got a week or two of some cold weather, considering what Florida thinks is cold versus what Maine and Connecticut think. It's also very different.
We're hardy people, us New Englanders. So we mentioned terms like breathwork, human design, gene keys, EFT, Reiki 2, NLP, some acronyms that I'm like, okay, what is all of this? So tell me, how did this all start for you? Let's start at the beginning and we'll talk about what all those things mean throughout the interview. So you started 2 decades in corporate. Tell me what success looked like for you back then and when you realized that something was missing.
Sure. So for me, the key's been be curious and always get better. So one of my mantras is semper ad meliora, which is a Greek term of always towards greater things. And I took that in as my own mantra of how can I get better? It's me versus me. And I've taken a little bit of a different journey than most. I was an online student before it was popular. So I did my bachelor's and my master's degree online, which again, it gave me some balance to how I was living my life and moving through career. And I started off as a medical assistant in high school, and I thought my career was going to be helping people, and I thought it was going to be in healthcare. Well, come to find out, I've shifted gears in many ways where helping people has just shown up in a different way. And from that journey was curiosity. How do I become better? And unlocking different areas. So when you think about energy, a lot of the work that I do brings in energy. And an example is you walk into a room and you can feel the energy of the room. Is it exciting? Is it tense? It could be any of those different things. And also when you leave that space or if you leave someone's company, how do you feel? So I've come to find that we know it exists, but we may not know that's the language we all speak. And they even say body language, right? We are able to understand body language from an energetic perspective. You can say something without saying something, right? You can give a look, you can give a nod, the whole like, I'm fine. It doesn't usually mean I'm fine. Usually means I'm not ready to talk to you, but something's up. So between that curiosity and my education and wanting to help people, I've been able to really put those together and continually be a learner of what are some of these avenues and tools that I can bring into my world and then in theory help the people that I'm working with, whether it's clients, personal, all of the above, to package it in a way that I can pull it out and help. So really a lot of it comes back to how do we find the tools that make sense for us?
Yeah, I love that we're talking about energy because I am always very attuned to energy when I walk into a space. And I often need to step away and go to the bathroom for a few minutes and recenter myself. So, do you think everybody is that attuned to energy or has that type of sensitivity to it?
I think there's a range and there's a variety of reasons of why that can be. It can simply be that your gifts, it can be how you're designed. It depends on also environmental and societal things. I can give an
Yes.
example. My mom does not love big rooms, and there's many reasons why she likes it. I'm quite the opposite. So if anyone is listening knows me, I can go in a room knowing zero people and I come out with 50 friends. So I think it's a layered reason of why people again need to be able to step away. The energy that we're in, maybe it is too much. There's times where like I need to go put my feet in my grass. I need to leave this space and go put my feet in my grass in the grass. So there's not a yes or no answer to that. It also can be the situation. We all have family members. Some we may get along with, some we don't, right? And they're our closest mirror. They're our biggest reflection. And sometimes you do. You need to take a pause. You need to take a beat.
So I'm curious about maybe you can help our listeners understand this. So you are the type of person that can walk into a room and leave with 50 friends. So what is it? Have you had to learn that behavior? Do you think that's something that's natural in your being? Are you just so curious about people that you feel like you attract that energy? Or tell me about that for you.
So I think it's been an innate gift that I've been given. And then I've also nurtured that. So putting myself in environments that allow me to connect, allow me to have those conversations. Part of the move from Connecticut to Florida was I knew there was bigger and better things for me. And Connecticut had served its purpose and run its course. And was I in a different networking circle up there? Absolutely. I was much more in the corporate space where you're engaging in that one particular company, not necessarily as a larger network. So for me, it's been a gift. It's been something I've nurtured. And I've also been intentional of how I do that. So making sure I'm in some bigger rooms to make those connections and connect the dots for other people, which is really fun for me as well.
Okay, so I love this conversation, and I told you in the beginning I have some questions prepared, but I want to give some real world examples because I'm thinking of when I was back in the corporate world. Oftentimes, you're going to networking events and you are walking into rooms alone where you don't know anybody. So,
Mm.
what's a tip that you would give somebody who's feeling a little self conscious about approaching a stranger for the first time? Like, how do you go about somebody that it may not come natural to?
Sure. So a few things that I think about is energetically grounding yourself and getting ready, right? Moving through that fear. We all get nerves, and where are those nerves coming from? So whether it's a power pose of some kind, taking a few deep breaths, and mentally being ready to walk into that room from a perspective we have been known to, from the tales of time, we were running away from tigers and lions, and we're not doing that, but the fear still shows up in the body the same way. So if that is something you're really nervous about, hear yourself in, and also have two or three questions prepared that you're ready to ask someone to get to know them. One of my questions go to, and I'm sure you've heard me say it, Sharon, is what's something new and exciting in your world? And it allows the conversation to naturally take its own space. Something could be where they're getting married or there's a new baby or they have an event that they're going to. And it
Yeah.
brings that human piece back into it, especially in this world that's noisy and busy. Bring it back to that human space of what's exciting, what's new, what's a great topic to celebrate.
That's a great question. I like that because it does. I think when you asked it to me, you makes you pause. It makes you pause and think, what is new and exciting in my world? And is there anything, right? Like, and then you're like, what do I want to share? It's kind of, that's a great way to start because oftentimes people are like, hi, I'm so and so. And what do you do? Right. I mean, that's usually, tell me about you or whatever, or this is who I am, or yeah. So that I like that approach a lot better, like a soft entrance, right?
Yeah. So
And plus,
find
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Let's say find those questions that feel right for you, right? You don't want to feel robotic going into those spaces. So use the languaging that makes sense for you.
There's definitely a lot of discomfort around those environments. So I know even myself, who I'm pretty outgoing and
Yeah.
confident, when I'm going into I did it yesterday. I went to a Toastmasters class in the morning for the very first time. I walked into a room of strangers, right? And I'm like, I'm going to put myself out there. And, I was asked if I wanted to speak. And in the beginning of the meeting, I said no. And at the end, they ask you again. And so I said, I'll give my 2 minute whatever, right? And it is very daunting when you're in a room of people that already know each other and you're
Mhm.
the new person, the new face in the crowd, and you're being pushed a little, right, out of your comfort zone. So that's why I wanted you to say what you said, because I was like, all right, I need to figure out a way to help other people that are in that environment, because we do get put in those situations often, especially later in life when you're single again, right? Or you're reinventing yourself. And now you're like, okay, I have to be able to approach people in a
Mhm.
positive way. And yeah, instead of just sitting in the corner, waiting for someone to come to you, right? Yeah.
And we all want connection. And at the end of the day, we want to help each other. We want to root for each other. So you can give the example of Toastmasters. They all want you to succeed.
Yeah.
They want to be the cheerleader and be able to clap and be able to be of that support. So we want to do that. Why wouldn't someone else want to do that? Right. So lean into that. People are there to help. People are there to support you.
Yeah, usually that's true. You've spoken about corporate stagnation and a painful breakup being pivotal moments. What did that season teach you about yourself?
Go inward, get quiet, go inward, reflect. And what do you want to create? So those moments in time where am I? What's not working? And what do I want to create? And then start to build some action into it. So we can have these visions. It's also you have to be able to put some action behind it. And that those seasons with pausing enough to go, what do I want next? And also not being afraid that you can create more, you can create better. What you focus on, the energy that you focus on is what you create. So if you're focusing on the positive, that will come to you. If you focus on the negative, that will come to you. So it's also being in that state of mind of this all works out. Why wouldn't it work out?
Curious, where does your drive come from? You said you taught yourself online, you got your degrees online. You didn't go to a traditional university, correct?
I did not.
It's difficult to be motivated enough to be self taught. So, where did that come from? Were you homeschooled?
I was not. No, I went to a school in Connecticut and I've wanted bigger and better things. And one of the driving forces too is I want to create a better life and I want to make my mom proud. I want to make my family proud. And if I was given these skills and talents in this world, it's a disservice if I don't share them. It's a disservice if I'm not being able to bring these in the world to make it a better place. It's almost it's this mission that I've been tasked with. So I don't know anything other than to move that forward.
Well, I love your attitude. Let's go back to your painful breakup. I don't want to go too deep into it, but I just want to bring it up because a lot of us have gone through painful breakups, right? Most of us will at one point in our lives. So, what advice would you give somebody who is going through it now and just doesn't have the move forward like you did?
Yeah. So I go back. It's like now I feel like, gosh, is it like 10, 15 years? And I've lost track at this point.
Well,
So
that's
kind of a little
yeah.
backstory. So I was engaged to get married and we were simply the wrong people for each other. And I think that does happen where you go through life, you've built a dynamic, you've built a relationship, and you come to a point like, are we really right for each other? And I think it's that inner knowing it's this or something more. It's this or something better. To be frank, I was numb for those few months of after that. It just wasn't a great time in my life. And keeping the faith of there's something better, there's something more, there's a reason for it. And looking back, it was the biggest catalyst and the greatest blessing because it was the root of all of the growth that I had from there. And know that it's a season. It doesn't have to be forever. And it's just, I guess I would say it's immense faith that things are going to be okay. And what's for you won't miss you. And what's not for you will fall off naturally. And I've used that line in my whole dating world. It's this or something better. And if this doesn't work out, I can't imagine what's around the corner. If this didn't work out, oh gosh, I can't imagine what's next. in such a beautiful way. It's just that deep level of faith and belief. It's going to be okay. And you make it through the days, even when they're hard, and you look back going, gosh, how did I do that? But it's that faith. I would say it's the faith that just keeps you moving. There's got to be something better. There's a reason that we just don't know right now that's going to keep you onto that next space, that next level, that next season of your life.
I think that's beautiful. I think it's great that you started by honoring that it was painful,
Oh
you know,
gosh, terrible.
right. I know. And that's the thing. I think we just need to give people grace and allow people. I remember I went through a divorce, and even though I initiated it and it was my decision, it still was very painful for me. It didn't mean that it was like,
Mm,
I wanted to end a relationship that I had spent 23 years building, right? I mean, you built this amazing life with children and all of that, but there was something internal that was like, I know there's something more that I'm supposed to do. Not better. I don't want to use that term, but there was something more that I was supposed to do, and I wasn't able to do it in the context of that marriage.
yeah.
So, I think that once we give ourselves permission, as devastating as it was, like you said, it was painful for me for a couple of years, but I had invested an awful lot of time and had children and all of that. So, yeah, but I think people need to understand that there is light at the end of the tunnel and things can get better and often do get better, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
again, it's giving yourself grace and sitting in it. You're also not going, you're making the choice to not stay there.
Right.
And there's that part of keep moving forward, keep growing, but also allow yourself to be sad. Like there was definitely days I was in bed crying and I just
Oh,
allowed those emotions to come through and process. And if you don't, it can be a detriment to your health, to your mental health, your wellness. So all of that. So even though you may be sad or frustrated or angry, any of those emotions that come up in that process, move through them because it's only going to help you get to that next level and honestly, it may even help the process be faster. And you never know how long it will take and give yourself the grace that it's okay to take that
yeah.
time.
Right. You have to grieve the loss, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
something I think that's not shared enough is also losing friendships along the way as you grow. And it's just as much as a grieving process. And with that, you may outgrow in many different ways. And that's also okay. And you can grieve those relationships because they were what they were for you when you needed them. And also, maybe they're not anymore. And that's okay. You can love them for where they are, love them for where you are. You just may not be going to the same place. So, even though it could be a romantic dynamic, it also can be where it's a platonic dynamic that you grieve a loss in some capacity because you're now again evolving, growing, what have you. And
Yeah.
that's also okay to move on to what feels right for you.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. Was there a
Sure.
specific moment when you realized the soul was the missing piece in personal development?
So I think it was a very layered process for me. And what I saw in corporate in some ways is that we don't listen to ourselves. We have these hunches, these intuitions, and we don't always allow ourselves to dream and have vision and do bigger things. And it's like, well, this is the job and this is that. And you get sucked in and you forget what can joy of the hang. What brings you joy? And we can get stuck in the cycle and the mundane is like, well, what's lights your soul on fire? What's exciting? And I don't find that we pause enough, especially in some of those busy working roles of what matters to us. And then also leaning into that. So we're doing more of it. If you're in a role that doesn't make sense, but you're like, well, I'm going to retire in 5 years, or, I'm just going to ride it out. Like, are you really enjoying life at that point? And again, letting go of what may be better or different or greater for you. You can't find it if you don't let go. And I give the example of a trapeze. So you got to let go of that one trapeze bar to get to the other one. And I find time and time again, sometimes we get stuck on that first trapeze and don't let go to get to the second one.
Yeah. People get comfortable, right? Or, frankly, they've got bills to pay, right? And
Mhm,
they just make sure that they're covering their bills and taking care of their family. And so they do what they have to do and give up the dream.
mhm.
That's what I see a
Yeah.
lot.
Mhm.
No, I was going to say, you say many people are trying to fix themselves. What do you think
Mm.
we're getting wrong about self improvement?
Uh, we are not listening to our own voice. I think there's so much noise in the world and we're bombarded. And I don't remember the statistic specifically, but the amount of information that we had available to us, it was like in like 1920s versus now, it's a crazy difference. And we have social media, we have our family and friends, we're just getting bombarded with noise and messages all the time. When we are quiet with ourselves, we can hear what makes sense for us. But if you hear all these different messages, that's going to influence you whether you like it or not, because they're always there, they're always around. So I think what we're getting wrong is capturing the pause, capturing our own voice, and also listening to it. And what does that mean? And what does that look like for the next step, whether it's a season level, what have you?
Can you walk me through that, listening to your own voice? Because I think people say that a lot, but I think a lot of us have a hard time really understanding what we want and need. So what would you say to somebody that is really struggling trying to figure out what's my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing here? And how do you listen to your own voice?
So I think a few things that come up for me, I give the analogy of a closed hand and open hand. So if you're like
Okay.
this, you can't hold water. And if you're like this, you're able to hold the water. So if you're holding on of like, I want my mission, I want my mission, I want my mission, you're not allowing the flow of life to happen. And sometimes things will find their ways to you. And I say more often than not. So it's releasing sometimes the expectations of this is going to look like XYZ. It has to be in this little box. I say God's got a sense of humor and it will be sometimes packaged in a different way than you expect. So be open to the possibilities and release expectations. Easier said than done. There can be some questions that you ask yourself. If I took fear off the table, what would I do? What would that look like? What type of support would I be able to build whatever it is that you're looking to build, personal, professionally, anything in between? But I think it's asking yourself specific questions, going deeper, and giving yourself the grace and the silence to just is it go to a park? Is it go to a coffee shop and just be with your thoughts and sift through those? So asking some quality questions. I say the quality of the questions are the qualities of your answers. So if you ask surface level questions, you'll get surface level answers. If you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and a great framework is the 5 whys. Well, why am I afraid? Why am I afraid? Why am I afraid? And you're able to get to the root of what's going on and then start to move forward from that space. So I would say the quality of the questions and the time and space to be able to give yourself to answer those questions can be just one way to be able to really listen to your voice. And it's scary. We are scared.
Yeah.
Fear is a
What
real.
are we scared of, Emily?
It could be different things. Some people can be afraid of success. Some people can be afraid of failure. It's also what's that definition of success versus what's definition of failure.
Yeah.
And uh, again, we're built differently. We're built with different pieces, and that fear can be different for each of us.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm afraid of being judged, right? That's my thing. I'm so much afraid of failure. I failed enough in my life at this point.
We fail fast, we fail forward.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to I've been in sales my whole life too, so I think once you've been a salesperson and you've had enough rejection, you're like, "Ah, that didn't hurt that bad. It's not that bad." So, yeah, there are a lot of failures, but I think being seen, like for me to do an Instagram post, for example, it takes a lot. That's a lot of courage for me to do a post, which sounds crazy because I know I do these podcasts, but to think of content to create that is going to be meaningful. And then it's like, how do I measure that? So there's all this, like, if I'm not getting likes or if I'm not getting feedback and I think a lot of people struggle with that with social media. Here I
Yeah.
am, you're trying to build a brand just as you are, and you want to get the positive reaction to whatever it is you're promoting and putting out there into the world. And when you don't get that, it feels a little hurtful. So, or if you get worse, if you get negative feedback or mean comments, right?
Yeah. Well,
So, yeah.
I do find the higher you go, more people will come out and share their opinions. And what I will say about judgment, those that are judging, it's their own mirror and has nothing to do with you. And I share this line freely. So please, who's listening and Sharon, you take it. It's the who hurt you. It wasn't me. And it is never about you. That judgment is not about you. And it's just
Yeah.
taking that, like, this has nothing to do with me. Someone hurt you and it wasn't me. And just being able to let that flow off. Like someone that says something mean, it's like, well, what happened? Like, are you okay? Like, where is that even coming from? So that judgment is their own mirror of something that they don't want to see or they don't like in themselves. And that's also can be a hard pill to swallow. Like, we do judge as humans. And I even pause myself like, so where did that judgment come from? Like, like, let me sit with why I thought that and revisit where I can reframe.
I love that. That's amazing. I love that shift that you have. So, what does how rather does someone know that they're living out of alignment?
Think you have this inner knowing and something's missing. There can be, and I don't necessarily want to just say sadness, but there's not flow. When you're in alignment, life just flows. Things fall into place, the right people, the right things, the right experiences. So if you feel there's this level of resistance, it's that question of, am I pushing too hard? Is this not for me? And it becomes almost this dance with the ego of, why am I pushing hard on this? Is it the right thing? And I go back to even my fun fact. I was 2 weeks out to a bikini competition. I know you were a former competitor, and there were just so many different things going on in my life, and something had to go, and I was forcing and forcing and forcing. It just didn't feel right. It's like, we got to eliminate this. This is not in my best interest. So I think you almost get to this point of like, what am I doing and why am I doing it? And we don't always get to that point where then we start to make change. I do find as humans, we wait to that point that we hit the wall and then we make a change. So if you're feeling even this inkling, especially if you're getting quiet, you'll know, right? If anyone's been in a job that they're like, oh, I feel exhausted, I feel drained, that might be a good indicator that you're maybe not in the right place. And again, you talk about sales. Sales can be tiring, but that doesn't also may not mean you're not in the right place. It's what's that level of tired and exhaustion that's showing up in your life. Granted, you got kids, you got this, you got that, you're going to be tired. It's the type of tired, I suppose, is what comes to it.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Sales can be tired, but I never really looked at it as sales. I always looked at it as I'm solving a problem for someone. And as long
Mhm.
as it makes sense for them, then I want to help them, right? I never wanted it to be about me making my quota or whatever. It was more about, is this product really going to solve a problem for this
Mhm.
individual, right?
Yeah.
Has to
It's
be
that
about them.
Yeah, it's the other focus. And I love digging into the world sales because some people have this visceral negative reaction like, oh, sales is bad. And some people have a very different definition of, well, sale, just like you and I, sales is
Yeah.
this exchange of services to be able to help support and grow for whatever that product provides. And it's sitting with, what do these words mean to you? And like on a whole, what do some of these words, success, failure, what have you, what do they mean so that you can dig into them and find what resonates?
Yeah, I love that. So you blend energetics, we're going to get into those acronyms now, with leadership principles. How does soul alignment translate into better leadership? Tell me about how stuff like Reiki, and maybe you can even explain what that is for some of our listeners who might not know. I'm not familiar with the terms human design, gene keys. I know what EFT is, but maybe we can talk about that, and NLP. So let's talk about.
Yeah, so I think there's so many different modalities and spaces to be able to bring in this huge sphere of, I'll say, energetics. And again, we all speak it. We just may not know that's the language we speak. And Reiki is just the life force energy, and there's ways that you can use it as a modality, whether it's healing, it's for yourself or others, and there's ways to be able to move through and tap through that life force energy. I'm sure you'll start to see the word Reiki here and there. I was just seeing a lot of these messages on Instagram, social media, what have you, of woo woo and energy. And there's all these different quotes, and I'll say the greats that are connected to the idea of energy. And JP Morgan was said, millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. Right. So it's like there's these time old testaments that energy is something we can tap into. So Reiki is just one of them where you're able to align yourself, whether it's you're getting that from someone else or doing it on your own. Human design and gene keys. I will geek out for days about this, so I'll keep it short. They're essentially your energetic blueprint. And the way that I describe it is the human design system. It is the masculine, it is the map, and then you have gene keys, which is the directions. How are you moving through some of these? So there's many different components of them. Brings in esoteric, it brings in mathematics, has astrology, it has the I Ching, which is around your purpose. And what we do is we're able to pull up this picture, will you, and be able to see where are your opportunities, where are your strengths. And I'm fascinated by it because it's one of those things where you realize you're not broken. There's just different pieces that you may not have tapped into, not have awareness around. And it's used as a tool, just like all the other pieces, right? About how we process language and how we are able to really tap into our body to be able to show as the best self. So on my journey, I've taken every profile, assessment, what have you, whether it's Clifton Strengths Finders, DISC, and I found just an immense crosswalk with human design and gene keys of how does that help someone on their own journey, whether they're far into their journey or they're just starting into personal development and being curious. Because there's such a range, right? Like, are you just going, there's so much more, or are you really well evolved? So it's a great tool. And any of these tools can make sense if they resonate. I will say you find the things that make sense and you let go of the things that don't. If meditation feels great for you, lean into it. And also going to the park can be a form of meditation. So it doesn't have to be so black and white, any of these tools. It's find what makes sense for you and lean into them. So that's why I've been so curious because I wanted to learn them all. I want to learn all these different pieces so that I can bring it into my toolbox and be of support because someone like, tapping, it's helping to rewire your, like, this is just one example of a tap. It allows you to get into your body. That's what's really a control at the end of the day. It's not our mind. It's really our body. And our body knows before our minds do. You think about instincts that like, oh, something's wrong. That's your body telling you, not necessarily your mind. I've tapped into these tools because it allows me to then share them with the people in my world. And the more I learn, the more I'm fascinated by it.
I am curious, what does the acronym NLP stand for?
A neuro linguistic practitioner. So it's really that neural linguistic, so neural being your neural pathways, linguistic is language. How are you
Okay.
connecting? There can be different eye movements. There can be different ways that you're really tapping back into the body and that languaging that you use.
And for our listeners who couldn't see you, when you were tapping with one of your hands and tapping onto the side of your palm. Is that how you were doing it?
There's different anchor points. One of them is right under your clavicle, and you can press and hold and just be able to repeat that pattern that will help to reset your nervous system in a way. So if you are feeling anxious, nervous, stressed, what have you, go right under your clavicle and go ahead and tap. And do that at least 10, 15 times, and you'll start to feel yourself relax.
So a lot of people now are talking about breath work, and do you use that in conjunction with breath work? I guess one of the big questions is how do you decide what tool someone needs and when they need it? Do you see what I'm
And
saying? There's so many different, like you said, modalities. How do you know if someone were to come to you, and how would you know whether to say, I suggest Reiki for you, or I suggest tapping for you, or how would you know which is the best practice?
I would say it's asking questions on what feels right and what's sustainable. If someone, and it's like, well, you know, that's probably not the right modality. And it's starting small. So leaning in to ask those questions of what resonates. So it's like we can take 5 deep breaths a day. Start with that. Start with that. If you're feeling tension, go ahead and maybe tapping's a good tool. So it's asking what makes sense for you, right? It's not a one size fits all. And what can be sustainable practice? What is something that you're going to do? And I think of the personal development world as a whole. You can buy all these books, courses, and then they get dusty. I want to be able to find the things that are going to help and going to be sustainable in your life and your lifestyle that makes sense. So if you think it's like, well, that's stupid, I'm not ever going to do that. Well, I'm not going to recommend that, right? But I'm going to be able to give you different options, lean into what makes sense. And then you get to decide, right? This is your life. This is your journey. What feels right for you? So 5 deep breaths make sense. Great. Let's do it. I'm here to support you. If you want to do 10 minutes of a breath work track, I love that too. Again, it's what's sustainable and what makes right sense for someone's lifestyle.
So this all really lights you up. I can see the energetic work. So what do you want to learn now that you want to add to your toolbox?
There's a few different things. I definitely want to deepen my breath work practice. I just think it's a fascinating thing. It's what keeps us alive, it what keeps us going. So if we are
Yeah.
tapping into the breath, we tap into our power. I am a very deep meditative student, so I like to tap into more of that and find different practices to bring in. It's I think more or less it's deepening the information that I have more than necessarily learning new. It's really going deeper.
Do you currently have a daily meditation practice?
I do, and it changes based on the day, and again, find what's flexible. Sometimes it's like I have 15 minutes, sometimes I have an hour, and it's I have access to different tracks where 15-minute makes sense, 45 minutes makes sense, and I'm able to pick and lean into what feels right for that particular day, but that's a promise that I make to myself is I'm going to get quiet, whether it's, again, a track or just putting myself in the grass, to be able to keep myself centered.
Yeah, I know. I want to learn more about this because I was listening to another podcast a couple of days ago, Lewis Howes, and they were talking about meditation in particular and said that most high achievers have put that as part of their daily morning ritual where they will meditate for a minimum of 20 minutes. For some reason, 20 minutes seems to be the goal. Do you find that to be true that 20 minutes is, and what is it, what's special about 20 minutes? Or do you
So
know?
yeah, well, there's so many things. It's just enough to I think even if you do 1 minute meditation is worth it. Even if it's 30 seconds, just an intentional thought and pause is worth it. So I don't know the science around 20 minutes. I think it's enough that it doesn't feel like a chore. So me personally, if something feels like a chore, I'm very resistant. I don't want it. So 20 minutes can feel tangible and again sustainable where it's an everyday practice. If you say, I'm going to meditate an hour every day, that may not fit into whether it's a travel schedule, vacation, all these different things of life that we go through. I think 20 minutes is because of sustainability. Is that a commitment that you can keep and make to yourself every day? 20 minutes is something I think most people can. It's not always the easiest to start to integrate that habit, but that 20 minutes will certainly change your life.
So I want to unpack this a little bit further. So I struggle with meditation, and I think it's just because I have a hard time sitting still for any period of time and maybe feel like I need to be distracted by the television or my phone. And I don't think I'm alone in that. So I want to, if I were to start integrating this practice into my life, what's an easy way? You just said 30 seconds, 1 minute. So maybe just start small. And that's a question. And then second question is, would you suggest doing a guided meditation? I know there's a lot of apps that can help you work through it too. So how would you guide someone like me who is new to meditation?
Yeah, I say, what's a commitment that feels sustainable? If it's 1 minute a day, let's start that for a week. Is it just being able to pause, take an intentional breath? I do this a lot in some of my workshops of, have you taken intentional breath today? And especially later in the evening, you'll still scan the room and they'll go, I didn't. I didn't take a breath. I didn't take a pause. I've just been go, go, go. So start small. And there are some really great tracks. There are some really great apps. And some are much more heavy guided. Some have a little bit of music and space in between. For someone who has a very busy mind, I would suggest starting something that's more guided. Lewis Hayes has a bunch of different tracks, and you can find things on YouTube where I want to say I think an 8 minute track, and I can share it with your community where it's you're going to have a good day, you're going to have a good day. And it's literally just the speaking track and allows you to be engaged the whole time. So start with something that will engage you, especially if you feel like your mind is really busy, and start to grow into that meditative practice. It's a practice, just like yoga. It's not going to look the same every day. It's going to be different. We have different experiences where you could have had now you're upset, right? There's so many different ways we're going to show up in our practice. It's what's sustainable, start small, and then build from there. And again, not one size fits all. If you ask my nieces, they think meditation is me cross-legged on the floor with my hands like this.
Well, I do think that that's a misconception because I will tell you that I went to a class for meditation, and they did want you to sit in those poses and try to clear your mind and keep coming back to your breath. So that was the practice, right? Keep coming back to your breath. And it was so difficult because we were in a room in a city and all I could hear were the city noises and the sirens going by. And I couldn't help but my mind would go, oh, I wonder what's going on out there. I wonder what's happening. Like there was so much noise, as you said, that it was so difficult to just stay centered and go back to my breath. So I think, once I tried a couple of apps and was able to kind of be walked through it, it wasn't all about quieting my mind. It was more about, like you said, maybe some positive affirmations or just taking that time to set the intention or have a better mindset for the day. That works much more for me than trying to sit and just focus on my breath. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah, and you can't go 0 to 60 or 0 to 100. You're building up on that habit of what is going to be in alignment. Now,
Yeah.
I certainly didn't start with hour meditations when I was a beginning meditator. But I have done 4 hours in one time. I have been able to build up that, and just like going to the gym, right? You're not going to go pick up the 100-pound barbell on your first time. You might do a 2.5, then a 5, then 7.5. Like it's incremental, right? Give yourself the grace that you're not going to get it perfect. It's not going to be perfect. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be something that you're building up a skill just like anything else.
I like
So
that. You're building a new muscle. I like
you're
that.
not going out to the 100-pound dumbbells. We're not.
Sadly, I know. I wish I'm still stuck on 10.
If it's so easy, right? We'd all be doing it.
I'm still stuck on 10. What does your daily alignment practice look like now?
Yeah, I have quite a few things that I do. One of them is meditation. I journal. I get to process what's going on for me. What am I looking to create? And one of my go-to questions is what does my highest self need to learn, think, know about today? And it could be something you use in the morning, something you use at night. And find for me, it's been finding a journal practice that's been fluid. Some days it's just wild mind writing, or I'm just writing out anything that's coming up for me, anything that I'm worried, thinking about. I get outside. I make sure I get my feet out in nature. I get out in nature. I actually have on my to-do list every week to get to the beach. I moved here to go to the beach and it allows me to feel so centered. It's something that becomes almost a non-negotiable as a weekly practice. I throw in some affirmations in there. What's the vision that I'm creating and revisiting that? So it's always in the forefront of what am I doing? And that way I can be intentional with my day. So I have a few of these staples, and some I do all days, some I do some days. And I'm also okay if I don't have all these check boxes done. But meditation for sure is a core element of how I show up in the daily world.
What belief did you have to let go of in order to become who you are today?
My identity is going to change and shift. So who I was at 15 and 20 and 25 and 30, and I'll keep going because I'm the one or two
You're
more.
not
Uh,
you're not that old. Stop.
Oh, no, no, and it's certainly a frame of mind, right? Um, is that it's okay to become different versions. That was definitely part of my own journey. It's okay to take up space. It's okay to be in big rooms. It's okay to have a big voice. And that self-acceptance was a huge piece of my journey. And that self-worth. I can be very transparent. That has been a huge opportunity for me is my self-worth. And what does that look like? And again, what we share with people and what we go through can be different at times. And I've had to build up my confidence day in, day out. And it's knowing again that there's something bigger and better and there's a mission and a purpose of our lives and okay with the changes and the ebbs and the flows.
When you go into a room as a speaker,
Mhm.
what do you hope the audience with? How do you hope they feel after they've
Yeah.
heard you?
Hope they feel seen. I certainly want them to feel seen and empowered. So if they take away 1 to 3 tangible pieces that can shift them in a positive way, it's a huge win for me. And one of my talks I've given in the past, I remember one of the feedback I got was the can't versus the choose not to. And that reframe of, am I choosing not to do this versus I can't do this? And that was just a simple reframe that that person took away and now uses that lens. Like, I can't go to the gym or am I choosing not to go to the gym? And
Yeah.
that's again an empowered moment of what am I looking to create and what are the stories I'm telling myself? So that just simply is a win for me. How can I impact in the greater scheme of things, even if it's just that one mindset shift?
Yeah, I like that. So what happened with your bikini competition? Why did you
Oh
2 weeks before decide to pivot?
gosh. Let me set the scene.
Yeah, I'm curious because we have that in common, so let's yeah.
Yes. The lessons I'm learning are, and still to this day, asking for help and not putting my plate too full. So this was the pinnacle of all of those things. I was in my last semester of grad school, and the school that I went to, it was cut into eight weeks each. So I was my last 8 weeks of my program, finishing my master's thesis. Like we're a tail end, right? I am also running a medical practice. I was office manager at the time, so I was closing one provider practice to then come to another practice that was being created. So managing one, taking care of one, breaking that down, opening that other one at the same time. So just from a professional level, what was I doing? And then at that time, I was also going through a separate breakup. This is a different breakup.
Okay.
So my cup was full. I was in the gym twice a day. I was managing these two offices. Now my heart was broken. Just all wild, wild things at that time who I was working with from a training perspective, she wasn't able to get to the show. My mom was getting surgery unexpectedly. The support would have been minimal. And I was at that point like, something's got to give. And this isn't it. So I took my ego aside and I said, maybe not, certainly not now, maybe never. We don't know. More to come. And I was like, there's too many things that I've worked too hard for this to be what's in the forefront. So it wasn't the easiest decision because I had worked hard months and months and months and months of even like pre prep work to then go, this isn't for me. And again, there was that force and resistance where just too many things were pushing me against it that it didn't make sense. And I wasn't taking care of my soul. So that was one of the catalytic events of what am I doing? Why am I forcing this? And I'm just really, from a soul perspective, tired. And it was choosing what made sense and not saying yes to everything. And part of that was the soul journey, the self-worth. I was looking to prove myself, my self-worth in all of those different areas. And it just certainly, in a way, it came crumbling down because I needed to rebuild it. So not the prettiest part of my journey, but a very impactful, necessary in my mind part of my journey.
So why did you set that as a goal for yourself to begin with? Because you had to prove something to yourself?
So, it led with fun. So, if you know anything about me, I lead with fun. And I had hired a trainer when I turned 30 and they asked what my goals were. And I said, bikini competition sounds fun. Like that could be great. And that's where it started. It all started with what could be fun. And the more I got into it was, again, it was challenging me. It was making myself better. It was the routine, the habits, and all the other ancillary pieces of it. And then when I got down the road, I looked at it like, I'm not having any fun anymore. This isn't fun. This isn't exciting. This feels like it's just draining me more than filling me up. And that's, I think, where the rubber hit the road was it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun at all.
It's not fun.
Well, I was tired.
Well, yeah, you tired a lot because you're depleting your calories at the same time that you're trying to build your muscle. Yeah, it's grueling. People don't understand that about that sport, and it's also it can be very lonely. Even though I tell people you do have to have a team around you. I had a trainer and a nutritionist and, then opposing coach. So you do have to have people and people at the gym that supported your journey, right? But it ultimately is up to you. You don't have a real team like several other sports, right? It's ultimately up to how can you condition your body to get it to a place where you feel confident enough to step on stage in a very small bikini and do these
Like
awkward poses, right?
first, when
And
I
then you and then you are grappling with the why am I doing this? Is it ego driven? Is it fun? Is making me happy? What's the purpose behind this? So yeah, you do have all that.
yeah, it
Yeah.
started with fun. did not end with fun. And it was another way to challenge me. I am one of those people like, oh, this sounds like a great challenge. Let me do it. I want a challenge. It's like
It's a great challenge, and I do think, like you said, you learn a lot of lessons through it because one of the things I thought was fascinating is we truly can transform our body through diet and exercise and intention and all of that. I mean, it definitely made me feel stronger, more confident. There were a lot of positive things that came from doing that sport, and yes, it is hard.
so I admire the people that can and do and have because it's not for the faint of heart. It's a
Yeah.
lot of dedication and
A
you
lot of
are
sacrifice. There's
super
a lot of
focused.
yeah, there's a lot of sacrifice, and, what was it? I was told by one trainer, said, "You have to" he goes, "You are an athlete," and I never thought of myself in those terms. He said, "You know, you need to people want you to take it seriously because there's people on that stage that are taking it seriously. So think about why you're doing this, and if you're an athlete, you have to act yeah, eat like an athlete, you know, train like an athlete. You've gotta
Mm,
your whole mindset for me, my whole mindset shifted when he used that term with me because I'd never been an athlete. I didn't grow up in sport. So to now say, I'm not just doing this for fun. I'm doing this because I'm an athlete and I'm going to be taken seriously when I step on that stage. It was
mm,
just a total shift for me in the way I viewed, the way I approached, you know, my daily routine.
mm.
So, which was a good thing,
Yeah,
right?
it's
It's just like now, like with you, I want to be a speaker as well. And so now I have to start saying, I am a speaker. I have a
mm,
voice and I have things to share instead of this other stuff that goes on in my head where,
mm.
you know, the B stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's we get to move through that self-talk.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of it though, man. I'm like, shut up, shut up all day long, right? How many thoughts do we have in our head a day? Something like 70,000 or something
Let me
crazy like
it's in one of my I do reference it, and most of those, by the way, are subconscious. So those are not even things getting to the surface. So that's a whole different world of the subconscious rewiring is you have, I would say, yeah, 75,000 thoughts and 95% of those are subconscious. So imagine what else is underneath.
yeah,
If that's simply the thing that you're hearing, that's only 5%.
interesting. What does becoming a better human actually mean to you?
Yeah, I think being curious and being kind, and pausing. I think pausing is the key to it all, right? And I was having a wonderful conversation with someone yesterday, and I think even empathy comes into that too. That we are all on different journeys. I think being better humans is being curious, right? If we don't know who's going through God knows what, and you could be that glimmer of hope and light just by holding space. Again, it's the who hurt you wasn't me. Leaning into we've all got stuff. Be kind. I think it's just such a pillar and foundation.
It's so true. I had this woman come up to me the other night and it was so unexpected because I've known her for a few years. And she said, she took me aside and she said, I just need to tell you that years ago when I first came into this friend group, it meant so much to me that you came to me and spoke to me and immediately brought me in, you know? And I thought, wow, I didn't like it didn't even resonate with me. Like it didn't even make any sense to me that she has held on to this for all those years. And felt the need to come to me last weekend and say, you know, it just meant so much to me. You know, so your point, like you just never know, like, and especially with a new person in a group that's already formed, how much that's going to mean to somebody to just be like, you're welcome here, right?
We
You know,
all as human want, so allow that to happen. And with that comes curiosity and understanding.
yeah, and be that person, right? Be that person that reaches out. Don't wait.
Mm.
If someone listening feels disconnected from themselves right now, what's one small step they can take today?
Think pause. And I feel like that's a theme, a thread throughout our whole conversation is
Yeah.
there's such power in getting quiet with yourself. And there's fear in that too, because what's going to come up? We don't know. And it could be scary of what comes up and what's the truth. And at the end of the day, the truth will set you free. It may not always be pretty. And you're like, how am I going to do this? And I find that that pause and being honest with yourself in that pause is really important and lean on the people in your life too as you're finding, whoever has been hearing this and chooses to pause if that's something that's needed in your life, share that with people in your world so they can help support you and even sometimes even process it. I know for me personally, I process things out loud, and to have someone even as a sounding board that allows me to move through what's going on, whether it's a decision I need to make, a transition, a pivot, having someone look me in the mirror and give me some honest thoughts. It's that pause, it really creates us to move to the next level.
I tell you what, that's a real gift when you have someone in your life who can be truthful with you, isn't it? Up to you
Yeah.
instead of behind your back and about you,
Yeah,
right?
and it's like, it's bringing in, like, I'm with you, we're on the same team, and that's the lens that I live in, and I don't
Yeah.
know life really any other way, so I hope even if this message is to spread, like, be of support, be kind, um, because 'cause we're all going through the same stuff, just in a different way, and
Yes.
I had an interesting experience where it just resonate that there may be different zeros in your bank account, but we are all going through the same stuff. We are all doing the same things in life. It just that may be one of the only differences.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Well, Emily, we need to close out this episode. And what I've loved about this conversation with you is that it bridges two worlds so many people think are separate: strategy and soul, leadership and energetics, ambition and alignment. If today's episode resonated with you, I encourage you to reflect on this question: where in your life are you trying to fix instead of connect? If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to share it with someone who's on their own journey of becoming. And as always, thank you for being here, for doing your own work, and for showing up as the leader you're becoming. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you, Sharon. Much appreciated.